Hey everyone, welcome back to 996 The Howl. Just to do a little bit of a preemptive vibe for this video, it will probably be more negative than usual. The vibes have been immaculate for the Utah Mammoth this offseason, so I wanted to get this video out of the way, and I thought instead of doing 4 negative videos, why don't I just put it into all one negative video and we could move on from this, because I really think this is an important topic and you're not going to see a lot of people talk about this because yes, it is negative, and people need to maintain relationships. So beat reporters, what have you, people close to the team, they might not harp on a player or zone in, target a player so much for their production. Whereas for me, I'm a bit outside, arm's length away, or maybe a few thousand arms length away. So I can give my honest thoughts on these players. And before I get to the stats, there's a lot of stats on this board. Andre Tourney, there's an article around February or March, Craig Morgan wrote it, where Tourney did speak on these players, not specifically, he didn't name them, but through reading his quotes, it became obvious who he was talking about. He said there was a group of players that are in a different situation this season compared to last season. They're playing about 20 to 25% less than their time on ice from the season prior. And we can see that with the time on ice decreases. Bukestad, 5 minutes less ice time with Utah than with the Coyotes this past season. He also said you bring in young players, you bring in a lot more competition, you're battling for that ice, and when you play less minutes, your production does get affected. Like Tourney flat out said it. He said when you're playing less, your production is less. And he said these players need to adjust to their different role. And when he says that, I think I read it as he's more talking about Lawson Crouse. I think moving forward, there's always going to be young players coming in with this team. Looking at the amount of prospects they have, their pipeline coming through Tucson, like every year there's going to be players on entry-level contracts coming, and they're good quality, hopefully good quality prospects, and that's going to bring down some of these guys. And I think Crouse is the only player out here out of this group. Obviously, like Carcone is already gone. He said at his post-season availability, he said he's going to a different direction. Then Utah is Bukestad. He's an unrestricted free agent. They'll probably walk away from him. And then Michelli only has 1 more year on his $3.4 million contract. And the fact that he only played 55 games and he was scratched the other games, he wasn't injured. So that's, 27 games he was scratched, if my math off the top of my head is correct. So he's talking about Crouse here, where you need to adjust to a different role. There's a lot of competition, and to me, I think Crouse in the best vision of this roster, Crouse is a 4th line power forward winger, maybe 3rd line, but I'm okay with that. I love that. Yes, he makes about $4.3 million for 2 more years, but Crouse needs to adjust his role. He scored 20 goals back-to-back seasons with the Coyotes, and then this year it dropped down to 12. So you have the Coyotes season stat on the left side of the arrow, and then the Utah Hockey Club stat, now the Utah Mammoth stat, on the right side of this arrow. So before we get into the stats, just want to say what Andre Tourney said about these players, that their time on ice decreased because of young players being better than them, needing more ice time, and all these players, their role shifted from the Coyotes. These guys, Michelli, Crouse, Bukestad, that was a second line with the Coyotes. I called it the magic line because all they would do was score. And even Carcone scored 21 goals last season, 2 seasons ago with Arizona. And then with Utah only scored 7 goals. So there's drastic differences to all these numbers. For me, I just try to investigate what really happened. Is it just they played less and then that made them play worse because they played less? Because to me, obviously as a mainstream fan or a fan, you just talk on the street. If you said, hey, if you played less minutes, wouldn't you have more energy and then you would get more points? Like, I would think like that, but apparently not. Apparently the more you play, the more you get your legs moving. You're not sitting on the bench. You're just in that zone moment to moment instead of just being pulled out of that moment, that zone of being in the zone and sitting on the bench for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes stretch. Maybe it takes you out of the game. and then you go back on the ice and it's only like 35 seconds and you got to like, it takes 10 seconds to readjust and then boom, your shift's over. So that's probably what happened with these players. Let's get into the stats. It is pretty ironic that they all settled around the same amount of points, 18, 18, 19, 19 points with Utah. But look at these drastic decreases from Krause, 42 to 18, Michelli, 57 to 18, Bukestad, 45 to 19, Carcone, 29 to 19. The biggest thing for Carcone is scoring. Like, he was a 20-goal scorer for the Coyotes. Didn't look like a 20-goal scorer for Utah, but these players were important to the Coyotes in their last season. Michelli was 3rd in points, Bukestad was 4th in points, Krause was 7th, and Carcone was 10th on the team in points. And then for Utah, all of these players were below top 10 in points. So like something happened, and this was the Achilles heel of Utah, along with injuries. Injuries played a huge important role, but every team goes through injuries. You can't just blame injuries. This was depth scoring that could have propelled Utah to a playoff spot. Like, they missed around 20 goals, and like if each of these guys just got 5 more goals each, boom, that's 20 goals. They would have been more competitive. Goal scoring was hard for Utah this past season, and I think it was because they couldn't get this supporting cast of players to just put the puck in the net. You could see their time on ice, 3 minutes for Krause. Andre Tourigny also said for Krause, he wasn't playing that much penalty kill time with Utah compared to Arizona because they got Stenlund, they got Kerfoot, Gunther, Cooley played PK more, Hayden played PK a little bit more with Utah. So Krause's PK minutes severely decreased. Michelli, 3 minutes. Bukestad already said 5 minutes. Carcone's minutes stayed the same. I think Carcone just had a magical season the last season with Arizona. Then we have expected goals. So like Krause actually scored 23. He was expected to score 21 and a half. We could round that up to 22. But then this season with Utah, he was expected to score 16, but in reality, he only scored 12. So his goals above expected was -4. And all these guys are negative? Yeah, they're all negative. Not so much Carcone, but you do not want to be below what the analytics say you should score. And Krause had those moments. He had breakaways. He had chances in tight. Yes, he was snake bitten, and that probably is why the analytics said he should have scored more. But in reality, he was below it and didn't reach that. I think, yeah, he was snake bitten, and he needs to finish a bit more. For Michelli, the goals above expected, I mean, it pretty much stayed the same season to season, but 17 goals last year, dropping all the way down to 8. Then we go to goals per 60 minutes. So at least in this metric, the 60 minutes metric, it doesn't really care about your time on ice per game. It just takes it in 60-minute chunks. So that's more of a static stat line, and you still see drastic decreases. Goals per 60 minutes, Krause went from 1 goal per 60 minutes. 60 divided by 16, let's say that's about 4 games, maybe 3.5 games. You're good for Krause scoring every 3 or 4 games. When you drop down to 0.65, then it's like Krause is scoring 1 out of every 8 games. Like, that is such a long stretch between goals. Michelli pretty much almost stayed the same at 0.77 goals per 60 to 0.64, but he did most of his damage with Arizona on the playmaking side of things. He was a magician that last year at Mullet Arena. Bukestad, again, 1 goal per 60 minute with Coyotes, and then dropped to about half a goal with Utah. And Carcone had 1.5 goals, a goal and a half per 60 minutes, and then dropped down to 0.69. So you could do the easy math here. So 11 times 5 is about 55 minutes. Obviously, it is 55 minutes. He's probably at about 57 minutes. So that's 5 games for Carcone, and he's scoring 1.5 goals every 5 games. That's great for depth, and we sorely missed that with Utah. Then you go to points per 60. Krause, almost a full point less per 60 minutes of game time. Michelli, over a point less per 60 minutes. Bukestad had 2 points per 60 minutes, dropping down to almost 1.5. And Carcone pretty much stayed the same. I guess because his time on ice stayed the same, his points per 60 minutes sort of stayed the same. And yeah, 29 points, 19 points. Again, it's more the goal scoring that dropped off for Carcone than the point totals. Then we go to shots per 60 minutes. Did they shoot less? Not really. I mean, Krause almost 1 shot less per 60. Michelli, he even increased his shooting from just above 6 3/4 to above 6 3/4. Even Bukestad increased his shooting almost 1 shot more per 60 minutes, and Carcone slightly decreased. Then you go to some analytical numbers here. Goals for percentage is how much of a percentage is your team scoring when you are on the ice. So it's not necessarily what you're scoring, it's what you're scoring and the teammates around you are scoring when you're on the ice compared to the opposition. And with the Coyotes, I saw this too when researching between the Coyotes last season and Utah's first season. Utah was an analytical darling. I already said it in previous videos with Cooley and Keller and just the team, Andre Tourigny's video as well. Like, their analytics were so good for Utah. They're like top 10, for sure top 10 in the league, and in some stats top 5, top 7 in the league in their analytics. And we'll get to these here. I'll jump down to high danger chance percentage. Like, look at this. Like, the players remain the same, but look at these jumps from 49% high danger chances, it goes to 56 for Krause, like nearly 57%. So that means when Krause is on the ice, his team has 57% of the high danger chances, and the other team only has 43%. When you're above 50% in these metrics, that's good. That means you're doing it better than the opposition. Michelli decreased a bit, which is concerning a little bit. He was an analytical darling for Arizona, even though Arizona wasn't an analytical darling last season. They were like bottom in the league for a lot of analytical departments. That's because they had a worse team, and Andre Tourigny evolved his system. They got way better defense, way better goaltending with Utah. He improved his system, and their analytics drastically improved from the Coyotes. Look at Bukestad. Like, look at this. Like, 5%, 6% increase. Carcone, 10% increase when Carcone is on the ice. And these are 5-on-5 numbers, not all situations. So 5-on-5 numbers, when Carcone was on the ice, he had a 10% increase in his team getting high danger chances. It just means to me that the whole of Utah was just generating a lot and way better than the Coyotes, but for some reason, these 4 players couldn't just put that puck in the net. This is possession numbers, Corsi, CF percentage. It measures the quality of your possession. It calculates shots, all types of shots, shots on goal, shots that miss the net, and blocked shots. And you can see here, again, it's the same players, 365 days separating them. This is increased by 5%, increased by 7%, increased 2%, increased 8%. And like, these players didn't have amazing seasons with Utah. If anything, when they were worse in possession, worse in high danger chances, they got goals and they got points. So it's really funny. Not funny, it's really interesting. It's really hard to pinpoint exactly what happened to these players. That's why I just got to take Andre Tourigny at face value. When he says it, he says it. When you play less, it affects your production, and you got to adjust your role. And I think that's just flat out what happened with these players. I know I jumped away from goals for percentage, but this was expected goals for. So again, with the Coyotes, it's less than with Utah. Their expected goals for, like Krause, when he's on the ice, his team is expected to have 55.5% of the goal share when he's on the ice, but that didn't really translate. And we see that with Michelli, 2%, Bukestad, 4%, and again, Carcone, 10%. Unbelievable stuff. So moving forward for Utah, I think they need to shed. They already shed Carcone. They walk away from Bukestad. With Michelli, it's one more year. at $3.4 million, I don't see the point in keeping him. When Andre Tourney is scratching you for 27 games and you weren't injured, like he wants to move on from you. Like I don't see the point in carrying him next season, just hoping he turns it around. Like he had ample opportunities to turn it around in Utah's inaugural season. I think Michelli is primed for a trade. Again, I'm not expecting much here. His value is way down, 18 points in 55 games played. For Krause, I do want to keep him, try again. I do think that I need to see Krause in the playoffs. I really do think Krause is that type of playoff player that teams would die for, and I'm not willing to give him up just because he had a down year. He's shown he's got consistency, three seasons in a row around 20 goals. He has the heart. He's a big guy in the locker room. He's a big guy on the ice. He's been with the team for so long. It was a down year. He had a lot of things happening in his personal life. He just had a baby. He had to move, relocate. I know all these guys had to relocate too, but like for Krause, he was just starting a family. He was so involved in Arizona and the community there. He loved it so much, and it may have hit him harder than some other players to relocate. But I think now that he has a full summer just to settle down, he's acclimated with Utah. He realized he had a bad season. He was scratched for one game, a healthy scratch, and that really affected him. And he was really public that he needs to be better. Near the end of the season, when he was paired with McBain and Josh Stone, I thought he looked way better. Again, he put himself in positions to score, just the pucks weren't going really in the net for him. So I would hold on to Krause. I think he's going to be huge in the playoffs. We just need to get him there. And again, he has 2 more years. I'm pretty sure I said 2 more years. 1 more year with Michelli, 2 more years, $4.3 million for Krause. Not a huge cap hit. We have so much cap room that just because he's underperforming his cap hit doesn't mean you move on from him. I think we just hold on to him. He knows his role is adjusted now. He had 1 full season of that. Maybe in this offseason training, he could get his mindset to that he's not going to be looked at to score a top 6 role, and he's more of a depth role player now. Maybe his offseason training would reflect that. He won't be so down in the dumps. His baby's a year old, so maybe he gets some more sleep. His wife's more acclimated to Utah, his dogs. So I think for Krause, I expect a bounce back from him. I wouldn't want to trade him just yet. And that's my thought for like this supporting cast that sort of disappeared and really hampered Utah's first season to reach the playoffs. If these players just were a little bit better, and they've already shown it last season with Arizona, if they just performed a little bit like they did with the Coyotes when they were with Utah, I really do think Utah would have excelled with that supporting cast help and production and taking the load off guys like Keller, Gunther, Cooley, Hayden, Schmaltz. Even though they're all up to the task, they all performed really well. Those players I mentioned, is these players down the lineup really just took the wind out of the sails for the Utah team. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.